Aren't you a little short for a stormtrooper?
What's up, nerds? Welcome to a very special episode of the Multiverse Report. Today, we are interviewing author of novels, films, and comics, Simon Birks, from the UK to Antarctica and everywhere in between. My name is Mike Gibson. With me, as always, is Steve Haller. What's up, Steve?
Well, we had a fun time talking to Mr. Birks. It was a really good interview that you guys will hear in a couple minutes. But overall, yeah, I've been very excited about this series since I started reading it, and I was really happy that he was able to pop on and give us a couple minutes of his time.
Yeah, coming all the way from the UK. Not physically, obviously,
Right.
but just zooming in. We did a Zoom call with Mr. Birks.
Which, unfortunately, the Zoom call caused some minor technical difficulties, so the initial cut of the interview, I think we lost maybe the first 2 minutes or so, which I wish we could have Simon, give his introduction of himself. At the end, all of his contact info he reiterates, but yeah, I apologize. It was me on the technical difficulties.
It's okay, Steve. We all forgive you. It's a bummer, but it's like you said, we only missed, I think, saying hello to him, and we missed him giving a summary of his story, the Antarctica series, which is about a woman named Hannah who kind of leaves her troubled past, a troubled life behind. She loses her father at a young age and kind of spirals out of control, and eventually kind of gets back on her feet, becomes an engineer, and goes to search for her father in Antarctica, joins a research team in Antarctica where her father disappeared. So then she pretty immediately, once she gets to Antarctica, realizes that things aren't quite what they seem. And as I say in the interview, sci-fi strangeness ensues. So after he gave a similar recap, I asked him if he had this particular concept in his head for a while, or if there was any kind of particular inspiration for the story. And when the interview kicks in, he will be answering that question. It'll be right in the beginning of that story, talking about when he took a meeting with the publisher Top Cow in Los Angeles. So, and then we go on from there. And we had a bit of a time limit, so we didn't quite get to ask him too many questions about his company Blue Fox Comics or the game books that he writes. Not only does he write comics, he also writes like dice games, not D&D, but more like choose your own adventure dice games, which are super cool. So you should check that out. Follow Simon Birks. He's got a link tree. You can find him from Blue Fox Comics, his company. You can find him on Kickstarter all the time. They do one Kickstarter a month, whether it be for a comic or a game book or something of that kind.
That was crazy to hear.
Guy. Crazy to hear. I've done one Kickstarter once, and it was the most stressful thing of my life. He does one a month. So plenty of new stuff always coming out from Simon Birks. And again, his comic series Antarctica #5 just came out. It was originally a mini series, which we'll say in the interview, but it has been picked up for an ongoing series. And the first trade of the first 5 is coming out in February. Issue 6 comes out in December, and as he says in the interview, you can pick up issue 6 without having read the first 5. So it's a good jumping on point. If you like what we're talking about and hear the summary sounds good to you, you can pick it up, order it from your local comic book store, Funky Town Comics in Camillus, New York. Check them out, and they can probably order it for you. And I think that's it. Is there anything that I'm missing as far as setting up this interview, Steve?
No, I think that's good. And if you enjoy the interview, feel free to follow us on socials, like, subscribe, and give us the whole, standard spiel. Find us at the Multiverse Report. And again, thank you to Simon Birks for taking the time to talk to us. Apologies again for the technical difficulties. At this point, I'd say let's get to the interview.
Let's jump right in.
And then there was the point where I went over to LA to sit down with the Top Cow people to discuss a story that they were going to put in an anthology and I guess this, I probably looked in those notebooks, and this one was there, and I thought, okay, that's a good idea. I can work. I can do something with that. And so, yeah, I've always been a big The Thing fan, obviously, and and so that's going to be part of it. Again, I always like stories which are sort of set in one place as well. So Antarctica gives you that possibility that you can't really go anywhere. You're kind of stuck once you're there, ish. And there's not many places, I guess, that you can say that that's still possible. And communications is dubious. So yeah, so that really worked for me. The actual nub of it. I mean, I've tried to look back to see where the all these ideas came together, and I cannot find it, but I know the panic probably of going into or sitting down with Top Cow probably also helped, whatever the word, as a catalyst to create the idea. And so that was really good. And to go back a step to sort of explain, because I always, when people have comics out, this is my first comic with a major publisher. People sort of want to know how, really, and this one came about because I run I run a sort of a publishing house in the UK, a small one, and so I use Kickstarter a lot. And I happened to see that Top Cow had a Kickstarter going, and they were offering a reward which was to have a 6-page thing in an anthology, 6-page story. So basically, I was there. I saw it at the right time. I was fortunate enough to have enough money to back at the level that needed, and I guess the experience of working, me working with them and them working with me was, good enough, and we're happy enough, and that they came back to me and asked me to pitch something longer than the 6-page stories.
Yeah, that clearly really worked out for sure. That's awesome. I'm a comic writer as well, independent comic writer, and I similarly had a situation where I backed a Kickstarter, which got me a long story short, I got an hour-long phone conversation with comic book writer Mark Andraco advising me on my script, which was like hugely beneficial for the outcome. So yeah, so check out those Kickstarters, people. Sometimes you can get some pretty great bonus rewards out of those.
So I mean, it's not even, you can't even say you find diamonds in the rough or in the coal sort of thing, because most of the Kickstarters there are good anyway. So it's just extra polish on them, to find something which could really benefit. So yeah, absolutely,
for sure. And you mentioned the meeting with Top Cow kind of being like a catalyst for the idea. I agree with that as well, that sometimes an extra bit of pressure can get the creative juices going.
Very much.
And you also I had in my notes, I was going to ask you if there was any kind of influence from John Carpenter's The Thing, because I thought anytime I think of stranded in a frozen area and something weird starts happening, that's the first thing that I think of. And I think is even in issue 1 or maybe issue 2, a character says, "We can't trust anybody" or something. And I was like, this has got to be this has got to be The Thing.
Exactly.
Of course, the what they're facing is radically different from what they're facing in The Thing, but you can still feel the influence, I think, a little bit.
Yeah, very much. It's a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun because I think we can safely say that basically, I mean, a multiverse does ensue. So it's, and we have we see right at the end of issue 1, Dr. Curtis, who's a different version of Hannah Curtis, who's taken let's say a more medical route to get there.
Sure.
So she turns up and she sort of extends her hand to Hannah after forcing her with a gun, and then says, we need to talk about father, sort of thing. So it's so it's exciting. I mean, and it's always very enjoyable to have those sorts of stories where because we will do it throughout our life. What if I've made that decision? What if I and this allows us to then play out those sorts of ideas. Although it is more than that, but there is a sort of a grain of truth in that sort of approach to it.
Yeah, for sure. one of the things that struck me about reading this book is that it's very fast paced. Like it moves really quickly in a way that you're able to accomplish so much storytelling without it never feels rushed, never feels like crammed in. And especially like issue 1 moves so fast. Like everything that you said about Hannah's backstory and all that's all covered in issue 1. And then you also, before the end of issue 1, get to Antarctica and encounter this threat. It's just like, are you kind of conscious of that while you're writing? Are you trying to like move it very quickly? Is that purposeful? Or like, and then on the contrary, like, how do you know if it is too much? Like, was it ever a point where you're like, okay, no, I got to save that for the next issue?
Yeah, I think yes, it's conscious that, I mean, having again running Blue Fox and writing independent comics that I have done since 2015 or 2014, the comics I write and being an independent publisher are much more slower paced. They're not, they have their own pace, shall we say?
Right. Yeah.
But I didn't think after getting the gig, I thought it probably is going to have to be a bit more than my really slow burn payoff at the end, really heartfelt sort of stories that I tend to do. So yeah, that was very conscious. And also, yeah, it's a lot of fun to be able to do that, and very much certainly find it in the second arc. There are sort of, I have lots of different versions of the books and of each issue, and it changes a lot.
Oh wow. Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm picking bits out from I write it and I let it lie for a day or so or 2 days, and then come back and say, okay, no, that's not good enough, and so it's that sort of thing. So I have to write it, have to leave it, come back, read through. Is the pacing right?
Yeah.
Is it good enough? I think probably is the first thing. And is it exciting enough? Is it mysterious enough? Does it give enough reveals in it? It's and a lot of the time I'm very lucky, and the part of my brain that I have no control over is sorting that stuff out, and then just lets me know when it needs to, which is jolly helpful. But it's but I'm pleased you're finding it fast paced or
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah. Well, and
Yeah.
that's I think it's one of those two where reading the initial, I was like, okay, we're at breakneck, like introduction, going at it, and then I was thinking like it's going to take a step back, and it keeps going, and it's the pacing is constant and moving, and I know you mentioned in conversation there the second arc. For anyone who is listening to this and didn't know, originally Antarctica was planned as a mini. It has been picked up as an ongoing, I believe, correct?
Yes, that's correct. Yeah.
So if you pick it up and you enjoy it as we did, you can definitely find more of it, which is great great to see.
Yeah, it was. Sorry, Karen.
Do you have like without really like kind of spoiling anything? Is there anything that you can kind of tease for like the ongoing, as the story moves forward?
Yeah, it doesn't get any slower.
Good.
And but we go back 15 years is arc 2. Arc 2 I'd already written 3.5 issues worth before I'd gone, because I was fortunate enough to go to San Diego Comic-Con for the first time this year, and be sort of like a guest sort of, and sit at the Top Cow booth and sign comics. So it was just kind of lots and lots of dreams coming true. So that was so it was still just a mini series then, but I was doing do a lot of writing either in cafes or on trains, seems to be the two things that work for me. And I was doing a lot of train journeys before San Diego, and I just sat there and I just naturally thought, okay, well, I've written these 5 issues now, and what would be kind of the next, what feels right to do next, and it just so happens, and I thought, well, if it does get picked up, and it's all ifs and buts, the next issue would be in December. So I thought, as a Doctor Who fan as well, when we have Christmas episodes a lot, and just generally, maybe the US do it as well, but the UK, lots of Christmas episodes of things, of sort of cult TV.
But
I
also
thought, yeah,
Doctor Who specifically is like big for the Christmas episodes. That's like a
yeah,
big event. Yeah.
yeah, absolutely. So I thought it'd be really fun just to write an issue for December, which would be just like a Christmas issue and stuff like that. And yeah, lo and behold, we've now got it's this one single story in one issue is now the whole arc. So it's 5 issues.
Cool.
So and yeah, and lots of weird. Yeah, it's great. It's lots of fun. So I already had 3.5 issues written, and when I went over to San Diego, I did drop that hint. I said, by the way, should it happen, should you want to go any further, I do have more of it. And then I remember I came back the next day and they said, yes, actually, we'd like to have a second sort of season, second arc. So I thought, oh, that's really good. And then I came back the day after and said, okay, and they said we're going to make it an ongoing series. So it was just unbelievable. And messaging Woody Roberts, who does the art, and Lyndon White, who does the lettering. Yeah, and just messaging saying, oh yeah, they really, it was happy times. I remember them fondly. So yeah, so it's really good. So you go back 15 years. So in that sense, you don't really need to have sort of read the first arc kind of thing, because we're starting before and we don't flash forward. We stay in this time period, although we do flash back even further. But anyway, but yeah, so we do that. It's we see more of why characters are like they are. I think is what we say. We see a lot more of Jerome, who is Hannah's father. Really, yeah, he's in it a lot. And yeah, and we introduced a new character at the end of issue 5, Dr. Gohu, and basically this is also her kind of introduction to it as well. So you find out a lot more about her and yeah, so it's fun. So we also we've got now Hannah is 7 years old, and so she's kind of so that's fun. It's just a different dynamic. I'd say the nice thing is I'd already written these, so I didn't have that thing. They didn't say, "Oh yes, we want a second arc," and I thought, "Oh my word, what am I going to say? What am I going to talk about?" Because I was always in my mind, it was always a long story, and I have a great way of kind of sticking my head in the sand for things that I don't want to think about, and I think that was one of them. I thought I know it's going to be bigger than 5 issues.
Oh, it's great.
Yeah, but so fortunately, and they said it was okay. So yeah, so I'm very lucky in that sense. Yeah, I know what the last probably 5 pages of the whole story are going to be, which is really nice.
Yeah.
How we get there is the exciting part. And as a writer, I very much am not a planner. I'll plan kind of each issue kind of thing, ish, and then they change because characters have character and and they do their own thing. So yeah, but we'll see. So we'll see what happens when we get there. And but yeah, it's a lot of exciting stuff.
Yeah, that's cool. You answered a couple questions that I had to ask you because reading reading all the first 5 issues. I couldn't imagine where it would have stopped if it was just a miniseries, because I was like, he must have had I knew, I was like, he must have gotten the news that this was going to be picked up earlier on, because I don't know where this would have ended and how it would have ended if it was just the 5-issue miniseries.
Me neither. Me neither. I mean, the character at the end of issue 5, well, I did have to change the end of issue 5 kind of thing, but but it still wasn't an ending. With the original ending, it wasn't an ending. So but it's a lot of so I'm just happy. I'll just happily sit in this bubble and say to everyone, please go out and buy Antarctica,
absolutely,
so we can keep going. But anyway,
it's great. I really also wanted to speak to, because I really liked the amount of representation that you put in this series, whether it be for like Black people or people of color, as well as LGBTQ community. I especially love, and this is like a minor spoiler, but I feel like I want people to know about this, the way that you bring up, you introduce a transgender character in a way that was a bit of a surprise, but and because of the multi versions of characters,
Yeah.
that character is able to interact with a pre-transition version of themselves and have a conversation that I think was really cool, and is it's a unique situation that you could only have in this kind of story. And it's something I've never really thought of when it comes to like characters meeting other versions of themselves or things like that. But I just thought that was really cool, and clearly seemed important for you to include.
Yeah,
this
very
kind of
much.
representation. Yeah.
Yeah, very, very much. If you have a look at all of one of the big Blue Fox things is, having representation in our books. So so yes, that's always been a thing with me. As a writer, I've always enjoyed writing female characters. I just find it far more, just I don't know, exciting, and it helps my writing. But yes, and knowing transgender people, and it's just super important. And if you've seen the latest Doctor Who episode, bring up Doctor Who again, it's fantastic that it's there as well. And one of the things that Russell T Davies was saying was you need to introduce the diversity of people in a happy, non-threatening way. People need to be able to see it, and so then they're suddenly not. I don't know. They suddenly don't get scared or whatever they are, or angry. So yeah, it's super important, and it's lovely because as part of Antarctica, it made sense in the story, and all of a sudden, it's with the character, just realizing how their world is different.
Yeah.
And then
what could be possible.
And what could be possible. Yeah. And it's the classic it's the classic sort of scene in I can't remember what it was called now, but Mitchell and Webb, where they're sort of saying, sort of David Mitchell says, are we the bad guys because we've got skulls on our uniforms? It's that sort of thing. It's he suddenly he suddenly realized, and he would, and he all of a sudden he thinks, okay, this is and it changes things, and it and it makes, I don't know, it just makes sense. I think this is the crux.
It did make sense, and I think I mean, without giving too much away, I feel like a lot of times it's hard to believably introduce this character who was originally an antagonist, all of a sudden now is on the side of your heroes, and the way that like having it be through this, like a realization of like, oh, where you're from, it's not illegal, like that kind of, it was just like, oh, it was really, like you said, a natural turn and a natural it becomes a plot point really for that character, which is great. It's great. It's not something that feels tacked on.
Exactly.
It's like you said, it's like natural to the story, which I really liked quite a bit.
Good.
So again, you've written in a lot of different mediums, novels, films, games. Comics seem to be kind of at a more of a forefront of your creative efforts recently. Have you always been a fan of comics, and if so, when did you get into reading comics?
When I was, say, around 7 years old, I think my nan used to buy me and my brother comics. I used to get Spider-Man ones. I feel that he got Star Wars ones. But that makes it so it's a kind of, I'm a Spider-Man person through and through. I didn't really read a lot more comics, and sort of, I don't think that's probably that stage probably lasted for 2 or 3 years. But after that, no, there has been this big hiatus in reading comics. Not being a nerd, I've been a nerd all my life. But yeah, actual reading comics, and I think part of it is because where I grew up, the town that I grew up in didn't have a comic shop, and if you don't representation, if he isn't there, you don't
doesn't make sense.
So it's so I just didn't really read them. They weren't available to read, and or if they were in some secondhand shop tucked away under a load of boxes that nobody could ever find, and that's about the only time I've ever seen them. But now, thankfully, comic shops seem to be getting getting more. Well, certainly, there seem to be quite a few in the UK, which is lovely. And I just but I was always a fan of like the old Spider-Man films, and this Incredible Hulk TV series, Bill Bixby and all that sort of stuff. So that was always there. So on a fairly regular basis, I would be probably watching a superhero character of some sort, I have to say.
Yeah.
But maybe not in comics. Is the truth. So
I think that's similar to the both of us have kind of gone through that, like, hardcore in the youth and then fell away for a while and then have recently, come back in it. I guess with a zeal at this point.
And it's crazy to go from a world where there's maybe not that many comic book stores, or it's hard to find those kind of stories even on TV and movies and stuff, and to now you can't turn your head without seeing a new superhero something in some kind of media.
Exactly.
Wild.
It's really good.
I'm sorry. But just to kind of, I know we're getting low on time here, but as far as if you want to wrap up, I know that you, like you said, you're always having Kickstarters. You just had a comic be funded on for your company, Blue Fox Comics, Powers of Fearful and Divine, has just been funded, or maybe it has 1 day left, I think, but it's
we've got
mark. And you just recently had one of your game books called Monuments that was completed on a Kickstarter as well. Is there anything else that's coming up for you that you want people to know about?
I mean, initially with my Top Cow hat on, I'd always say, go find Antarctica. You can get Antarctica #1 as a PDF on the Top Cow website on their front page. So go pick it up, go have a read, see what you think. If you like it, add it to your pull list. I mean, that's all I'd say. We've got the trade of the first trade coming out in February.
Oh, great. I was going to ask if there was a trade. That's awesome. Great.
Yeah, so first trade's coming out in February. And so it's probably available to order in December, I'm guessing. So a couple of days' time, you'll be able to start being able to order that. But and like I said, the great thing is you don't need to have read the first 5 issues to read issue 6. So it is perfectly possible to jump in. When it comes to Kickstarters, I run we run a Kickstarter a month. It's just I'm actually only 25 years old, but it's a lot of stress, but it's okay. It's a lot of fun. And if you want to find out, you can just, if you go to the Blue Fox Comics website, there's a link at the top just to sign up to our newsletter, and then you'll get me moaning at you. I'm not moaning, being very nice about stuff that we're doing and being involved, and we sending out always very interactive to get sort of people's interest. But yes, we've got another one coming on in December. One for called Corn Mother, which is a folk horror sort of one shot sort of. Which is very good, and I think probably quite it's sort of a gap in Blue Fox's catalogue, so it's going to be a good one. But apart from that,
you had Mike immediately with that description.
Folk horror sounds great.
There's it's getting lovely reviews as well. So, but it's not by a lady called Alexandra Leda, who's the artist and the writer, and it's certainly check it out. But we've got a link tree, Blue Fox Comics link tree. Then go there, all the links you could ever want and more. And I have a link tree under S. Birks Writer. So there you go.
Okay, great. Well, Simon, thank you so much for being here today. We really appreciate it, and we'll have to have you back someday. When the next trade of Antarctica is out or whatever. We'd love to have you back.
That'd be lovely. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you so much, Simon.
Okay.